In the headlines, Police Service Commission suspends police ASP accused of killing Lagos lawyer as NBA demands 5 billion naira compensation. Court stops DSS from arresting CBN governor over allegation of terrorism financing. House of Representatives probes loss of 2.4 billion oil revenue. And Brazil mourns Pele's death as fans sob outside Santos Stadium, while the Redeemer and Maracana Stadium are lighted in the color of the nation's flag. Hello and welcome to Trust TV News Update. I'm Zainab Bala. Hello and a warm welcome. The Police Service Commission has approved the suspension of an Assistant Superintendent of Police, Drambi Vandi, over the killing of a Lagos-based lawyer, Bolale Rahim. The Police Service Commission spokesman Ikechukwu Ani, in a statement on Thursday, said the suspension of the cop is with immediate effect. The ASP of police, who was attached to the Ajiwe police station in Aja area of Lagos, had on Christmas Day shot at the victim. The cop and his team were said to have tried to stop Rahim and her family members as he drove back home from the Christmas Day church service. Rahim, it was gathered, was shot when the car she was on tried to make a U-turn under the Aja Bridge. Now, the victim was rushed to a hospital but was confirmed dead. The Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, condemned the killing of the lawyer, recommending the suspension of the prime suspect and his immediate prosecution, even as the Nigeria Bar Association has demanded 5 billion damages for the family of the victim and immediate justice on the matter. Now, the killing of Rahim has attracted outrage, with many Nigerians, including top presidential candidates for 2023, calling for police reforms. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has also condemned the murder of the lawyer. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu on Thursday said there will be no cover-up in the investigation and prosecution of the culprits involved in the murder of the late lawyer Bolale Rahim, who was killed on Christmas Day by a police officer. He said the outcome of the investigations of the case is very important to the government and the people of Lagos State, stressing that the people deserve to know the process leading to justice for the victim. Governor Sanwo-Olu stated this earlier on Thursday morning during his visit to the Inspector General of Police, Usman Ali Baba, at police headquarters in Abuja. The Inspector General of Police, Usman Ali Baba, assured Governor Sanwo-Olu that there will be no cover-up in handling the case of the deceased lawyer and the culprit.
We can get to charge this officer to court, and we've gotten very positive, response and engagement from Inspector General himself, and we're indeed hoping that this meeting will be very useful.
And the ASP Bandi is the one that, through our investigation, confirmed to be the one that gives cover fire to the sub and search team, and he is the one that cannot account for the number of ammunitions that he was given. So by every extension, we believe he is the one.
A High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, has restrained Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC) Inspector General of Police and Department of State Services from arresting or detaining the Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele. The trial judge, M.A. Hassan, gave the order following an ex parte motion filed by the incorporated trustees of the Forum for Accountability and Good Leadership against 5 defendants on December 19, 2022. Justice Hassan, upon hearing Emeka Ozwani, counsel for the applicant, barred the defendants, whether by themselves, their officers, agents, servants, privies, or through anybody whosoever, from arresting or detaining the Apex Bank boss. The court ordered accelerated hearing and abridged the time within which the defendants are to file counter affidavit to the motion on notice and the originating summons. The court held that continuous harassment of Emefiele over trumped of allegations of terrorism and sundry offences is illegal and constitutes a breach of his fundamental rights as contained in the African Charter and the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria. The court held that exhibit is submitted by the fourth defendant, which was an affidavit also submitted to Justice John Soho of the Federal High Court, did not substantiate or provide any material fact or terrorism, and that the fourth defendant's acts are obvious attempts to interfere with the rights of Emefiele. The court aligned with the fifth defendant's position that there is a process for the removal of its governor, adding that the continuous harassment and interference by the fourth defendant is embarrassing in the light of statutory provisions. The FCC had in the affidavit stated that it had no case against the governor and that he's not under the agency's investigation. The FCC asked that it be discharged from the matter, being an unnecessary party. The court held that all other defendants except the DSS are nominal parties, as no case was really made out against him. Now, reports indicate that presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has struck a deal with the members of the G5, the 5 aggrieved governors who are members of the People's Democratic Party. An impeccable source close to Tinubu told Daily Trust that the meeting where the deal was struck was held on Wednesday at the London residence of the APC presidential candidate. He said all the G5 governors, Nyesom Wike, Seyi Makinde, Samuel Otom, Ekezie Ikpeazu, and Ifeanyi Ogwani attended the meeting. In attendance from the side of Tinubu included Governor of Jigawa State, Badr Abubakar, and former Governor of Ekiti State, John Kayode Fayemi. Before the commencement of the meeting, the source said all other persons present at Tinubu's residence were excused. He also said that the governors are to remain in PDP and work for the actualization of Tinubu's presidency while pursuing their other political interests. Another source close to a sitting governor confirmed the meeting but added that they are still fine-tuning the modalities of the alliance for the benefit of all parties. The crisis rocking the PDP revolves around the 5 governors. Since former Vice President Atiku Abubakar emerged as the flag bearer of their party, they have been calling for the resignation of the PDP National Chairman, Iyorchia Ayu. Presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Rabiu Kwankwaso, has accused the ruling All Progressive Congress and the People's Democratic Party of complicity for the security challenges bedeviling the country. Kwankwaso said education and youth employment will be his top priority if elected as president in 2023. He said this in Zamfara State, where he inaugurated the party's campaign offices in the state. Kwankwaso said if elected as president of Nigeria, he will mop up huge number of out-of-school children by providing education, infrastructure, recruitment and training of teachers to boost the standards and quality of education in the country.
Disgracing themselves, believing that they are experts. They go to the TV and tell Nigerians and the international community lies. I'm not ashamed of it. And you see, it's one of the problems of this country. People looking good, even good enough to be president, ministers, and so on. They reduce themselves to nothing. People who respect them, at the end of the day, they lose that respect. So we are concerned about people misleading and telling lies. On the other hand, we want them to continue telling lies, and they will, I'm sure, at the end of the day, they will be shocked with what the masses of this country will do in 2023 election. I consider education as number one priority. Whatever part that I do, number one is education. So that's why in Kano we are able to do free and good quality education from primary, secondary to tertiary level. In fact, so many people, at least 3,000 young men and women of Kano state residents.
Moving on, House of Representatives on Thursday begins an investigative hearing into the alleged loss of over $2.4 billion revenue accrued from illegal sale of 48 million barrels of crude oil export in 2015, as well as crude oil export from 2014 till date. Speaking at the inauguration of the investigative hearing in Abuja, Chairman of the ad hoc committee, Mark Wheeler, assured Nigerians that the committee has resolved to ensure confidentiality of all information that will be provided by whistleblowers as well as recovery of the revenue. The chairman pointed that the committee had to be set up now, 7 years after the incident, because it was brought to the fore in the 2020 and the House needed background information for thorough investigation and outcome. The committee solicited the support of individuals and corporate organizations to enable the committee achieve its mandate. The member of the committee, Ganiu Johnson, explained that as part of efforts to revive the various refineries in the country, the House Committee on the State of Refineries visited some of the refineries and gave assurance of Port Harcourt and Warri refineries coming into full operation by first and last quarters of next year.
And first of all, there's a salient issue of a whistleblower in 2020 who raised allegations that certain individuals at the time in government and some allegedly still serving conspired to sell 48 million barrels of Nigeria's crude, which resulted in the country's loss of over $2.4 billion. So it is important to point out the fact that our job, in line with our constitutional mandate in Section 88 and 89, is to investigate. And with regards to the occurrence of this issue, it only came to the fore, like several other issues, several years later. Even though the matter occurred in 2015, it was only brought to the fore by a whistleblower towards the end of 2020. And remember, that was the COVID period. And in the time between when that allegation came up and now, there has also been the issue of trying to identify the whistleblowers, trying to determine whether or not there was even a reason to commence this investigation. Like I told you earlier, these are individuals who have been expressing fear. So of course, they were a little skeptical about providing information until they saw that the House was serious about proceeding with the investigation, that they started reaching out. So that is what informed. So the fact that they occurred in 2015 and we're only having this investigation now is due to the fact that the issue itself only came to the fore towards the end of 2020, and we had to ensure engagement with the involved individuals and to ascertain their identities, because we cannot be involved in spurious investigations.
Port Harcourt will go live after our visit, after our discussions. We go live first quarter of 2023. Port Harcourt will go. So that is a way forward. At least if we're able to refine some of our crude oil here, we will reduce oil subsidy in the country.
You're watching Trust TV News Update coming up. Why women should occupy more political offices. Details of this after the break. Stay with us.
This is Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Jama'a ga wata muhimmiyar sanarwa, hukumar raya birnin tarayya Abuja da haɗin gwiwar dukkanin harɗawa shugabannin rigage na Fulani da ƙungiyar Miyatta Allah reshen birnin tarayya Abuja dukkaninsu suna bayyana damuwarsu akan yadda waɗansu mutane suke sakin shanu suna kiwo sakaka a birnin tarayya Abuja. Don haka hukumar raya birnin tarayya Abuja da ta kare muhalli ta birnin suna sanar da dukkanin al'umma tare da gargaɗi akan cewa an hana kiwo na shanu da sauran dabbobi da tsuntsaye a cikin birnin domin suna haddasa bata muhalli da kuma cunkoson ababen hawa a cikin wannan birni. Saboda haka duk wanda aka samu ya karya wannan doka zai fuskanci hukunci, kasancewar akwai gurin da hukumar raya birnin tarayya Abuja ta ware domin kiwo a cikin su. Don haka tabbatar ka bi doka ka kuma haɗa hannu da hukumar raya birnin tarayya Abuja domin tabbatar da tsaftar wannan birni. Wannan sako ne daga hukumar tsaftace muhalli ta birnin tarayya Abuja.
part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening.
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, total volume of 130.
A Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Already, if you look at England's squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
That's great. Good to see you.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. If you are just joining us, this is Trust TV News Update, our top stories. Police Service Commission suspends police ASP accused of killing Lagos lawyer as NBA demands 5 billion naira compensation. Court stops DSS from arresting CBN governor over allegation of terrorism financing. Moving on, the Kogi government has described Thursday's Okene bomb explosion as the handiwork of enemies of progress. Security advisor to Kogi State Governor, retired Commodore Jerry Omodara, said this in a telephone interview with the news agency of Nigeria in Lokoja on Thursday. The explosion, which occurred around 9 a.m. close to the old palace of the Ohinoi of Ibira land, left 4 persons dead and 2 others injured. The security advisor said the government earlier had received intelligence reports to that effect, which explains the deployment of security personnel across the state. He expressed gladness that the effort of the perpetrators was frustrated and the visit of President Muhammadu Buhari was successful as he commissioned several legacy projects. President Buhari says his administration is determined to position Kogi State as an industrial hub and solid mineral power base, as demonstrated by its committing over $400 million to revive the Ajaokuta Iron and Steel Company. President Muhammadu Buhari spoke on Thursday at Okene on Thursday during a working visit to Kogi State to commission the legacy projects of Governor Yahaya Bello. Kainde Amodu reports.
As the present administration counts down to its handing over to a successor in just over 6 months, President Buhari is looking to prove to Nigerians that the government he led for 7.5 years has fulfilled electoral promises made to the Nigerian people at both national and sub-national levels. There are an array of projects which have been completed by Governor Yahaya Bello in Kogi State, ready for commissioning by the president. But perhaps the feather in the cap is the Ajaokuta Steel Company, which the federal government has rescued from total collapse.
The process has cost this federal government over 400 million United States dollars so far. But I consider it money well spent as we move closer to achieving our objective of transforming Kogi State into Nigeria's iron and steel powerhouse.
No nation can boast of any industrialization and development without iron and steel. And you have commissioned that, and by the grace of God, we are confident that you are going to ensure that that Ajaokuta Steel Rolling Mill is up and running before the expiration of the time.
The Kogi State Governor is also commending President Buhari for ensuring that the state has remained secure despite its vast landscape.
We thank you for ensuring that all the security agencies in Kogi State work hand in hand with the government and the people of Kogi State that is giving the North Central relative peace, because, Your Excellency, Kogi State border 10 states, including FCT. If what is happening in some other states are happening in Kogi State, Your Excellency, wallahi, the whole of North Central and part of this country will not see peace. So, here we thank all security agencies for a job well done.
A list of projects commissioned by the President on Thursday include the Reference Hospital, Okene, which boasts of the first ever hyperbaric treatment chamber in Nigeria, and the fleet of ambulances attached to it, the new Hohinois Palace at Okene, and the Ganaja Junction flyover and interchange at Lokoja. Also commissioned by the GIB Model Science Secondary School in Lokoja, the Muhammadu Buhari Square also at Lokoja, and a fleet of high-tech security vehicles to combat crimes. Tracking the president in Lokoja, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
And now to gender matters. The quest for women's participation in politics and decision-making in Nigeria is one that has been keenly lobbied for, with low levels of progress recorded over the years. 27 years since the 1995 Beijing Declaration, which saw 189 countries of the world agreeing to implement gender parity and ensure increased participation of women in leadership and decision-making processes, among others. Dana Daniel Zaghi examines the implementation progress in Nigeria, among other African countries.
The failure of lawmakers to pass the 35% affirmative action in the National Assembly in March 2022 dealt a blow on the implementation of the 1995 Beijing Declaration in Nigeria. However, with a court ruling in April mandating the federal government to comply with the 35% affirmative action, women in Nigeria are optimistic successive governments will be sanctioned if they fail to conform.
The gender appropriation bills that were sent to the National House of Assembly, this has been an effort that's been ongoing since 1999, since we turned into democratic rule. We haven't seen the reception that we need to see, especially within the government quarters, in terms of putting in place the kind of policies that are required for, this gender equality to happen. And so the gender appropriation bills were thrown out, with blatant audacity, because it just takes that to think that women are insignificant, to the point that we would put in a bill and they would throw it out just like that.
Though Western countries recorded significant progress in executing women inclusion in politics, African countries like South Africa, Uganda, and Ethiopia have fared well in this regard. According to statistics released by the World Economic Forum, Nigeria ranked 123rd out of 146 countries on the Global Gender Gap Index in 2022. This has stirred up questions on what could possibly be the reasons behind the gender gap and the cold feet towards a legal commitment for more women in leadership positions. Culture has been identified as one of the limiting factors, and religious dispositions have also been linked to gender gaps at different levels of society. However, this perception does not negate the potentials of women in politics and leadership. Leadership researchers based on data have given facts to determine positive gender differences in leadership effectiveness worldwide. Alluding to the place of women in nation building, Minister of Women Affairs Pauline Talon decries marginalization of women in Nigeria.
My heart bleeds. I'm not happy with all our political parties as far as women issues are concerned. Our political parties, all of them, are not fair to women. It's not that we don't have qualified women to contest, but along the way, everything takes place within the party structure. If you are not within the party structure in the party secretariat, you will be phased out.
The determination of Nigerian women to obtain a fair chance in national decision-making says it all. And if the bargain is just for 35% placed on the leadership table, what then has become of the federal character principle and human rights when a section of population feels disregarded?
Well, there you go. Now, on the foreign scene, Christ the Redeemer and the Maracana Stadium were lit up on Thursday night in honor of Pelé as Brazil mourned the death of soccer's greatest star. Pele died at the age of 82 on Thursday at the Albert Einstein Israelite Hospital in Sao Paulo after a lengthy battle with colon cancer. Considered soccer's greatest ever by many across the world, in his native Brazil, he is lauded as a godlike figure. The nation went into mourning after losing the soccer legend who led it to its first ever World Cup in 1958, with many flooding to the streets and to Santos Stadium to pay tribute to the king. He will be laid to rest at the Urbano Caldeira Stadium, the home of the soccer club, where a public wake is expected to take place. Supporters of the club gathered outside the stadium to hold a vigil to the icon after news of his death broke. Many were seen somberly holding their own tribute to Pele by a mural of the club legend painted on the side of the Urbano Caldeira Stadium. With sports, we wrap up our news update at this hour. Do not forget to follow us across all our social media platforms. I'm Zainab Balan. Thanks for your time and company.